Welcome back to GBGuns. We've got another 1911 model in from Tisas, USA. This is the Tank Commander tabletop review and field strip coming up next on GBGuns. If you've been with the channel for more than, say, 5 years, you know that Tisas is not new to 1911s. They're just something that was in the country, left for a while. Now we've got Tisas, USA, and a little bit more support, so you can expect to see more of these around. Taking a look quick at what's in the box. We've got the pistol, of course, with chamber flag and a slot in the case for the chamber flag. Kind of a nice touch for those of you that go to the ranges that require these things. I probably have 1 million of these things, and I've lost 999,999 of them. We get 2 mags that are Cerakoted. I took a look. These are Metgar mags, 9-rounders, Cerakoted to match the pistol itself. You get a barrel bushing tool, which is pretty cool. Much appreciated that. I, however, learned how to deal with 1911s without one of these, so I'm still not good at using them, but it's a nice touch that it's in there. Up top, we have barrel brush and a cleaning rod for attaching your swabs, and behind it the manual, which is what we'll take a look at next. The manual is your basic 4-color and is meant to cover all of their 1911 models. One thing that I noticed was not in here in the ammunition department was whether or not plus P is okay to use. So just be aware of that. Now, with this being a 4 1/4 inch barrel, it's already above the optimal or minimal barrel length that most 9mm ammunition is calibrated for, 4 inches. So you shouldn't need plus P. However, there are some cool loads out there in plus P. There's a million ways to field strip 1911, or at least 3 major ones that I can think of. It seems each time I do one, I get criticized for my method. So I'm going to be following the manual, and we're going to be using this method today, which is to remove the spring, release the spring pressure, leave everything else on the top, and then bring the slide off complete. More on that when we get to the field strip. But you get a feel for the manual, what all's here. It is interesting that it has instructions separate for 4 1/4 or non, even though they all come apart pretty much the same way. Nice exploitive view with the parts code in case you should need anything, although with this being pretty well built gun, and yes, our Tisas 1911s from 6 or 7 years ago are still running strong. I don't foresee a need to find any parts. Let's get this stuff out of the way and take a look at the gun. If you guys didn't believe me in the first place, here you go. Here's the tag that was on it. Forged frame and slide, Series 70 internals, using standard 1911 magazines, and it was hardened before machined, which means the steel, as if steel wasn't strong enough to begin with, is plenty strong. As we go to verify clear for all of our safety Nazis, there you go. You can see it's clear, and we can take a look at magazine ejection. With it upside down and slide lock back, we still get a good kick. This is, bear in mind, with a Cerakoted magazine that does have a little bit of friction in there. Unbedding the stainless models, which we will test in our range video. We'll run a bunch of different 9mm magazine patterns. Probably not going to have any issue at all, but it is kind of cool that they found this Cerakote that looks a lot like the old Parkerized coloring, and the gun looks like an old school Park gun. But Cerakote is more durable, looks a little better, and tends not to collect dirt as much as Parkerized does. Starting up at the front, you can see our bushing system. All colors match. This is a matte, not flash gun, which in today's age of super flashy guns might actually draw more attention. No serrations up front. The front sight post is also the same color as the gun. We may want to put some paint on that. I took a look underneath the slide, and I'll try to show you guys in video. It's looks like a pin went in and then was ground flush with the slide, so that's not meant to be swapped out. No rail spot, no texturing on the front of the trigger guard. This is a much more classic looking 1911, and even the words Tank Commander are not super bold, so it's got a nice subdued look to it. Classic trigger, no texturing on the front strap. A little bit of beveling there. These wood grips, and they are real wood, are very handsome. Safety selector has a nice positive click to it. Probably not going to get bumped. For those of you who are not 1911 shooters and grew up on striker fired, running your thumbs like this, sometimes under recoil, can cause you to bump a safety into safe under recoil if you don't have a solid grip. This safety I think is firm enough that shouldn't be an issue, but in general you want to rest your thumb on that safety to keep it down to prevent that from happening. While we're here, we can get into our trigger talk. 1911 triggers come straight back, which is one of the great things about them. Little spring-loaded pre-travel, crisp brake, maybe a tiny bit of over-travel, and reset is something that 1911s are also classically known for. Right there, it kicks you a little forward of the wall, so you still have some take-up again, but pretty smooth. It feels to me better than the last Tisas that we did. Part of that might be because this is 70s series internals, which means it does not have the safety plunger in there. Now I've shot the more modern internal safety model 1911s and experienced ones with fine triggers. I experienced them with lousy triggers. I think the internet lore that an 80 series, or whatever you want to call it, the other version, is always going to have a worse trigger is inaccurate. But 70s series generally has a better trigger because there's less moving components, less friction in there, so it tends to be a better trigger feel. You can see we've got classic style, I guess you'd say A1 style, I don't know, you 1911 dudes can correct me. I've got a lot of 1911s, I enjoy them, I shoot them, but I do not study the historical evolution of them. Our mainspring housing has a little bit of a curve to it, give you a little bit of shape in the hand, and it is textured. Unfortunately, it's the vertical, not horizontal, but it will keep the gun from at least swimming in your hand. Our rear grip safety does not have a memory bump, but sticks up far enough that shouldn't be an issue. Another thing that I've noticed with guns that have grip safeties is there tends to be a lot of internet hate for them, and I suspect those are your isosceles shooters who sometimes in a sloppy or quick isosceles grip fail to put pressure on the back of the gun. If you are a Weaver or modified Weaver shooter or a competent isosceles shooter, you shouldn't have any issue putting enough pressure back here for the trigger to work. You can see that the beaver tail is more of the classic narrow design. That could be something that hurts, but on a heavy all-steel gun in 9mm, I don't think we're going to have enough recoil to really matter. Do have the rounded hammer style, which I'm a fan of. Helps reduce bite, although that beaver tail is definitely keeping my hand fairly clear of it. Slide to frame fit. We have a little bit of side-to-side play, a little bit of rocking. When a 1911 is super tight, they tend to feel super slick, but also have no tolerance for dirt or abuse or lack of lube. Having a little bit of play there can be a good thing. There's our sight picture. You can see it is that same gray Cerakote front and rear, but a good thick blade. And coming around the right side. Pardon the truck, folks. Got the window open. It's one of the first days of the year when it's not too hot to do that, which is kind of nice. And this is the other side of the safety. It's not an ambi safety. Swapping to an ambi safety is easy enough if you're left-handed. I'm sure dedicated left-handed shooters already know how to do that. Next, we'll field strip the Tent Commander and take a look inside the gun. Field stripping in 1911 is not hard, just requires maybe a little more skill and maturity than some of the more modern striker guns. Checking for clear, and our first step is going to be to release spring pressure. That barrel bushing tool that came on there fits on the bushing, this piece here, and lets you turn it easily. I just do it by hand. You're going to press on this end cap and rotate the bushing. Once it's turned enough, you can remove the cap and let everything be free. We're going to take the slide back until the top of your slide release matches that cutout. And once that is lined up, push on the other side to pop out your slide stop. With that out, we can bring the slide off the front of the gun. Take the spring off, and they are interchangeable. I believe 2,000 to 5,000 rounds is about the lifespan of those springs. Here's our guide rod. It's a standard short one, And our barrel is going to come out the front after we remove the bushing. Forgot about that guy. So we turn it one way to get it this far to pull the spring out. You're going to turn it the other way, and there is a little edge in there. That edge there that has to line up with the opening to be able to remove it. So put that out, barrel out the front, and we've got the thing apart. So taking a look first down at the frame. Beefy, solid, basic. Man, it's heavy too. These forged steel guns. And the same thing looking inside the slide. If this was not a 70 series, we'd have a cutout in there for the safety plunger. And that was done as a drop safe precaution. Just prevents the firing pin from slamming forward under its own momentum should the gun be dropped at the perfectly wrong angle. And we have an internal extractor. Hard to tell machine marks or anything like that since this has been Cerakoted, but overall pretty good looking. Now we'll check for chamber support using Nosler Match as always. Now this stuff isn't made under the same name anymore, now it's their ASP, but Nosler, in my experience, has the most consistent loading, and I know they make their own brass because I've seen them do it. When you're looking at chamber support, what you're looking at is how much of this brass is supported by the chamber. And that's important because should you have a failure of a casing or any other type of pressure issue happen in the barrel, where it is not supported is where those forces are going to try to exit, which in the case of a handgun means into your hand. I don't know if you guys can see in there or not, but it's got a decent polish on the feed ramp here, and the inside of the barrel looks pretty nice as well. So to do this, you drop in around and listen for a clunk. That was a good sound. And then you're looking around the edges to see where it is not supported. A wee bit under there at the feed ramp, but we don't worry about that. But otherwise, this fits in nicely. You also want to check that it can spin or turn and how well it comes out. A little loose there. Could just be that it's super clean, super smooth. We'll find out when we get this to the range. One of the tests that we'll run, of course, is our trademark What's for Dinner test, which will be 10 different loads, varying from super lightweight, we've got some 50 grain and 65 grain, all the way up to super heavies. We've got 158s, 165s, and steel case, aluminum case, brass case, nickel plated, all that kind of stuff. That's one of the things that we're known for, but we do it not as a test pass for the gun, but as a thing for you to know, so that if you pick up a gun, you know if a certain load is going to run in it or not. Because, well, it's really frustrating to buy a new gun and then find out that your favorite ammo or the ammo you had available is not going to run in it. So, reassembly, we're going to reverse the assembly process. And yes, you can do this with the bushing in advance by just moving the spring to a spot where it comes through. You're going to want to watch for this little eyelet once you get it back on the gun. And gravity can be a pain in the butt, like right there, made the guide rod pop out. So what we're looking for is through this hole, you want to wait for that eyelet to pass. And it looks like it came out of position. Yep. Bring that down. And when that eyelet passes through here, that's when you want to start your slide stop. Just to hold in place there. And then bring the slide back to the same spot where you took it apart, with that small cutout being over here. And bring your slide stop straight down into there. A little too far. It's one of those things that you can do a million times off camera, no problem, but trying to do it while looking through the camera is a bit disorienting. There we go. Bring that back forward. And now this is where the bushing wrench can come in handy again if you use one. I'm not used to it. Put the end piece on, push it all the way down to be able to rotate the bushing until it pops into place. And that's reassembling 1911. Not that hard. Functions check, everything is good. So in the range, aside from the What's for Dinner test I already told you about, with 1911s we do a multi-mag test. We'll grab our variety of, in this case, 9mm 1911 mags and see what feeds in it, what doesn't. You'll get a full mag plus 1 test. See if the gun runs on that. These being Metgar mags should be good. Also our cold shot first impressions. We will try a sight and trigger control test on our 6-inch spinner target, shoot for some accuracy, and then give you the concluding thoughts and opinions of both myself and Miss Tia. So you get 2 different hands, 2 different shooters, giving you their experience running the gun. That's been the Tisas USA Tank Commander 9mm 1911. We'll see you guys on the range. Thanks for watching. Next we'll take a look at chamber support using some Nosler. It's a shame this stuff isn't quite made anymore. At least it's been rebranded. But it was the most consistent, best 9mm stuff I've ever tested. Now when you're looking at chamber support, what you're looking at is, this is not 9mm, this is a 10mm.